because I had to distinguish between the objective and the subjective aspects of reality, and I said there is a two-way connection between them. But actually, that's not enough, because there is sometimes a connection just on the subjective level. So when I say to you, you are my enemy, right? It has an effect on your thinking about me, and you may well become my enemy because I said you are my enemy. So it may be a true statement, but it may not be based on knowledge, because it's not knowledge. You've created an enemy when you say. So I got really caught up in this, and in fact, I mentioned that there was a time when I was writing on this subject, and I couldn't. Next day, when I tried to read what I'd written, I couldn't understand what I was saying. I mean, that's the nature of philosophy. So I kind of skirt the issue in this book, you know, and sort of step, because if you want to describe it, you get into these difficulties, and they lead to interminable disputes.
You need world peace.
Pardon?
You need world peace.
It's all, this is all the mess, all the misunderstanding is in World 3.
I do have I did want to ask a separate thing, and it really concerns the relationship between, I guess, freedom and the economy. And let me preface it. Popper was criticized Marx for what he called economism, which was basically the idea that all human values and solutions to social problems can be reducible to economic terms. And this was the basis of his criticism. And apropos to the question about Hayek earlier, it's interesting because I've often thought of, if Marx was economism on the left, Hayek was sort of economism on the right. And this is very interesting because in one of his books, I guess this is his last book, Hayek says, acknowledges, summing up his whole philosophy, he says that I'd have to say that if it was possible, if a centrally planned system was shown to be more efficient and more productive than a free market, then I would have to opt for the centrally planned system, despite the fact that he thought that it would entail totalitarianism. Popper took the opposite view, and he said he personally thought that the market would always be more efficient and productive, but he might be wrong, but he thought that he would still support the market because of the tendency of a centrally planned market to lead to totalitarianism. And I'm thinking that when I was conducting all those workshops for you in ancient Central Europe, one of the things that disturbed me was that I felt that a lot of people who were open and perhaps enthusiastic about open society, because they thought that it would inevitably lead to the promise of economic prosperity. And I thought that was unfortunate because it set up the classic reactionary movement towards closed society that Popper talked about. So I wanted you to talk. I know you criticized the market fundamentalists. I think that is a kind of economism on the right. I know Popper said we have to plan for both freedom and security, and economic security. Do we value freedom because of the economic? I mean, when push comes to shove, when you get down to the fundamental, the last point, do we value freedom because of the economic prosperity that it promises? Do we value economic prosperity, free market, because of the social freedom that it affords, or how do you see it?
Yeah, I see kind of connection. I don't want to call it reflexive because it sounds like a reflexive, everything was reflexive, and I don't want to overstretch the term, but there is a two-way connection between prosperity and open society, because in my view open society is a tough concept. It's a hard concept to live with because it means accepting uncertainty. It means accepting fallibility and so on. It creates, you live in a very complicated world. And if you could simplify it, it would be better. It would be easier. So it's a hard world to live with. It's a hard burden to carry. And it's only justified, or it can carry itself and it becomes sustainable when it produces positive results, which come from liberating the freedom and the exercise of freedom. And if that leads to scientific discoveries, artistic flowering, prosperity through the market economy, then there is a feeling of well-being and optimism that overcomes the sort of the doom of not being able to actually get there. That you reach for it, but it seems to be always moving further away, namely the truth or the ultimate nirvana, the perfection. The fact that perfection is unattainable. So there is this connection that on the one hand, freedom does liberate and that does bring you this big lift, and on the other hand, that big lift then makes it acceptable to live in acceptable society. So there is, to me, this two-way connection between prosperity and open society.
Well, we have a schedule, and we're trying to keep with the schedule. There's another meeting at 12:30 that we need to get to. So maybe in the transition, those of you who have questions can catch George as we make the transition. But let me just finish with a few comments, because I think we're in a fairly good stop. One of the things that really impresses me about George's work is an almost relentless analysis. That he formulates one idea and tests it and formulates another idea. He's just constantly formulating analyses and asking questions. And when I compare that with what I do, I find that I sort of ask a question, formulate an answer, become comfortable with my answer, and go off to something else. And so I've asked myself, why is there this difference between the way he operates and the way I operate? And perhaps it's personal history in part. But also I think he tests his ideas in practice. I may publish a paper or change my lecture notes, but he acts in the market. He writes books in an attempt to influence policy. So he gets feedback that's very real. And so in a sense he's almost compelled by circumstances to then analyze what worked and what didn't work. Now, this more academic approach that I would say characterizes my work today may be fine for the Midwest, but in a city like Washington, I think we have an unusual opportunity to employ this more activist approach to inquiry. And so I would recommend you to reflect on that possibility. It might give us a certain distinction